customer experiences and expectations changing in estate agency, and what do estate and letting agents need to do now to adapt to these changing expectations?
Thanks, Chris, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'd like to echo some of the things that Peter's been saying and others in the group about customer experience being absolutely central. At the end of the day, the most important person is me. I don't mean me, just me. I mean everyone as individuals. Whether you are a business person, an agent, whether you are a vendor, whether you are a tenant, whenever you go to interact with a company, to find support or information, you are the most important person. You are not looking at yourself through the prism of the view of the business that you're interacting with. So thinking like the customer is no longer an option. It is absolutely, it's the only way really to approach how you then build these relationships and turn customers into advocates going forward. There's a quote which I love to plunder, which was said by a woman called Maya Angelou. Some of you might have heard this before. She was an American civil rights activist, a very bright and very fascinating woman. But she essentially said, "They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel." And if you just reflect on that for a moment and just think about good experiences that you've had, do you actually remember what someone said to you, or do you remember how you felt when you came away from it? And to echo the point about tenants, because at Yondell we're working with thousands of agents in the UK, and a constant refrain is, "Oh, we're not interested in tenants, just push them over there, let them sort themselves out." But they are tomorrow's buyers. They are tomorrow's vendors. They are people who may well be property owners themselves already. They are people who have networks of friends and relations. And if you as a business now think that you can come out of the COVID situation and expect things to pick up exactly as they were previously, then my personal view is that that's not going to happen. The consumer is now more empowered than ever before. They are able to... Sorry, Chris, you want to say something?
Do you think estate agents can't see beyond their pipeline, and they're very transactional and very, they can't see the bigger game, the long game, they can't be patient?
Yes, I think they are transactional. Not all estate agents, obviously, but there are a large number out there that are very transactional. They're thinking about the next commission. And Australia was mentioned just now, and I kind of joke to people that estate agents in Australia are often a bit like the family doctor. They get passed down from generation to generation because there is an ongoing and constant relationship with that person. It's about personality, it's about being customer-centric, it's about going over and above, it's about helping people with things that aren't necessarily to do with a transaction that comes at the end of it. And right now, within the COVID period, as we're planning for the upside, as we're looking at the next step, now is the time to be looking at people, looking at your contacts, and actually seeing how you can support them, guide them, and educate them as to what will be possible in the future.
Fascinating. I mean, it's interesting. I'll come to you in a second, Ian, but Heather actually gave me a stat a year ago that only 1 in 8 people actually go back to the agent they bought their house off. I mean, how awful is that? Ian, come in and carry this conversation on, please.
I just wanted to talk about the bit, Peter Knight, I don't want to embarrass him, but he taught me a thing called alignment. So I think if we want to move away from transactional to relationship, then we need to align the pay and reward to delivering those outcomes. So once you've picked your strategy, you've got your goal and your purpose and your focus, make sure that everything you do is aligned to that. But most importantly, or definitely a big part of that, has to be the pay and reward structures.
Okay. Andy,
otherwise you're going to be able to keep that.
Go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to add just a slightly different perspective as well. That thinking about the situation in the marketplace now, there's a lot of agents out there who are kind of keeping their heads down and they're waiting for times to pass so they can emerge blinking into the sunlight later on. But we're seeing huge upticks in activity with people asking questions and looking for support and looking for help. This is now an amazing time to be building bridges and building relationships with your potential customers and their networks. Yesterday, one of the major brands that we work with, we saw a 35% increase in live chat engagements in one day.
Okay, Nick, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I did. I was just going to kind of allude to what Andy's saying here. So, if you take a brand like YouMove, it's a very in-your-face brand. It's a UK-wide brand. But actually, when you look at the customer reviews that we get, it's all about the individual person who delivered a service. And it's that person that is the lead in their local market. It's that individual that gets passed down from one family member to another and referred and recommended. So even with a brand like ours, it's not so important. It is really down to the relationships that individual is able to build, which is why the model of any agent, whether it's the kind of model we adopt or high street, is so critical. It comes back to really what Peter was saying about having the time for those individuals to build those relationships is absolutely key.
Let's go Kristjan, and then we'll go back to Steve to see if there's any questions, and we'll move on to the next question. So Kristjan.
Yeah, I just wanted to add like a couple of experiences we've had. We've always been very service focused and experience focused as an agency, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of sort of things we've had sort of payback out of that. We've had a number of tenants actually now. I mean, we're coming up 16 years now. We're now starting to see former tenants come back to us as landlords, and the fascinating thing about that is that when I say they're coming back to us, they are exclusively talking to us based on that experience they had with us a decade ago. So there is definite, brand value in that. And not just focusing on tenants as well, the service you give your landlords. We had a rather sad incident recently where we had one of our earliest landlords sadly recently passed away. But quite staggeringly, we'd actually been written into his will. So he'd been so happy with our service, he'd actually put in his will that the family had to keep the property. And not only that, they had to retain us as the lettings and managing agent. And that was, obviously sad, but quite emotional. So it goes to show service, you don't get the immediate payback, but the long-term payback is incredible.
Okay, quickly to Ian, and then I must go to Steve because we need to crack on.
I was looking at the Q&A down the bottom that are coming in, and a few people are sort of asking, how can we still be talking about service in this day and age as if it's not a problem? Okay. And I think agents need to take a reality pill in terms of what they think they're delivering, and service is not the problem of the other guy. The service standards within our industry and the results and the outcome for our consumer are not at the highest levels possible. Heather will be able to tell you the amount of people that have to sell through the second agent. I think it's in the 60%. So more than half the instructions that come onto the market to sell, the first agent fails to achieve it. Then there's the vast majority have to reduce their price. They take weeks to sell. They take 17 weeks to go through. And we do viewings when it suits us, and we, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the whole industry does need to just take a deep breath. The problem of customer service is not how we perceive it, it's how the consumer perceives it. And I'm pretty certain if we did a straw poll of consumers, no matter how great you think you are as an individual agent in your particular town, the view overall and the general picture of the service delivery is way below par. It needs to be revolutionised. As Peter says, pick your strategy, go for it, but it has to be customer centric. It has to be.
Steve, anything coming in on the hotline or on the Facebook?
Yeah, there's a couple actually. Just one on that point from Ian Macbeth from Avocado in Berkshire. Can a traditional estate agent model actually give a client a bespoke or personal one-on-one relationship when they are built around factory-style departmental process? Sort of follows on from what you were just saying, Ian, I think.
Anyone want to say anything on that? Put your hand up. Kye.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it goes towards the attitude of that you take for each customer and the training within in-house. So I agree, at scale, when you've got dealing with thousands of clients, how do you maintain a consistent servicing every single time? And in particular on the letting side, there is generally a 4-to-1 increase on letting registrations over there are sales registrations, so you do have a volume issue to manage as a business. But that said, doesn't excuse that you need to deliver the best service you can every single time and not treat it as a manufacturer process, but each relationship is to be stemmed to a future relationship.
Just on this customer service point, I think it's really important when the market returns, as it surely will, the idea that the public are going to give us sympathy for poor customer service is unrealistic. They're going to be, it's what have you done for me lately sort of thing. So there is a massive opportunity there, and of course a risk from it as well. If you can outperform your competitors by out-servicing them, I really truly think that this is the time to do that and make that market share, because there's no doubt at all vendors are already playing off estate agents against each other in this market with self-isolation, saying the other guy will come round and value my house or do a private viewing. So just bear that in mind, that obviously, yes, there are some complete bastards out there.
That's a technical term. Quickly, let's go to Gary, then we must move on to Heather's question.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think, this is where I do think technology and some of the bigger technology and data players need to support as well. Customer service is great, and Peter quite rightly points out you need to make X number of calls, but often it comes down to knowing which customer number of calls to do. I mean, we analyse internet registrations all the time, and I know Richard's nodding, uses a lot of our tech, as does Kye, and we see a huge proportion of those internet registrations and inquiries go unprocessed. And at first glance, you go, well, that's really bad service, yeah? But imagine a scenario where those data providers, the likes of Rightmove and Zoopla and On the Market, can actually start giving better insight into those, and not just Gary Barker's looking at, would like to arrange a viewing on this property, but at the same time identifying that Gary Barker also looked at 34 other different properties, has also been cookie tracking around, kind of house renovations, house links, and actually start presenting data back into the likes of the CRMs to add more value to it, and actually scoring some of that data, and then we can start delivering better customer service.